Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, rolling out hour number 2. So glad you could join us. You know, there's certain images that you never forget in your life, right? You didn't have to be there to remember it. For me, of course, it's the 58 people that lost their lives right here in Las Vegas at the Route 91 Festival. And I still remember, like it was yesterday, I was in college. I think I was 18 or 19 years old. The Columbine shooting, right? I'll never forget that. And, of course, the Parkland shooting. Every single one of these mass shootings you never forget. Especially when you had to live through it yourself and you lost a loved one. And the man we have on the line with us right now, I have so much respect for him. We've had Gutenberg on the show before as well. I have so much respect for these brave parents. This man wrote a book called Why Meadow Died. Of course, he lost his child, Meadow, in the Parkland shooting. He is a Parkland dad, and he published this book with new details about how the shooter's red flags could have saved lives by, not allowing him to have a gun. So many other things to talk about with this gentleman. And Andrew Pollack joins us right now on the line. Andrew, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. How are you?
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
Happy to be on.
I appreciate that. I have so many questions to ask you in a short period of time. So I hate to go back to that fateful day, and I hate to have you describe the pain that you've had to go through. But I would imagine that's a day that, obviously you will never forget. So to give some of our listeners just a little bit of background, what do you remember most about that day, that fateful day?
Well, just thinking how it couldn't be me, or that it couldn't be my daughter that was murdered in the school. Because everyone, in reality, when you think about it, everyone thinks that it can't happen to them. And if you asked every parent that kid was murdered in a school, their child, they would say the same thing. They just think it couldn't happen, and then it happens. And it's a pain that you just live with it every day. It's just like a slow torture. That's what I call it. Every day you just have it. It's not just that day that I think of it. It's really every day, and you just got to learn to suck it up and move forward and just live with it.
Yeah.
And that's what I do.
And I'm so sorry you have to live with that every day. Let me ask you this question. We saw it in the Connecticut school shooting where, we heard people talking tough on gun laws, and then nothing happens. We heard it here in Las Vegas when 58 people lost their lives. Nothing really happened except for bump stocks. We heard it in Parkland after the Parkland shooting. Everyone talking tough on gun control, at least most people did. It just seems like nothing has been done. And my question to you is, why? I know you're doing everything you can. I know those very, very brave students who have now graduated, the David Hoggs of the world, are so brave, and they're doing everything they can in memory of those who lost their lives. But what would you say to Republicans? Why? Why has nothing, or at least not enough, been done to prevent these sorts of shootings from happening again?
Okay, now I got to set you straight because you're a little misinformed of what happened in Florida. And I'm okay to tell you. I hope you could take some criticism.
Absolutely. No, I want to hear from you. Go ahead.
We love criticism.
Okay, so first of all, Florida, run by Republicans, did more for gun control than any other state in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Let me explain that to you. So after the shooting, but within 3 weeks after the shooting, Governor Scott approached me, a Republican. The House, controlled by Republicans, came to my house. The reps, I meant, when I say the House reps of Florida, came to my house and they put a bill together, and they spoke to me about it. And I said I would help them get this bill passed. And in that bill was gun control. They raised the age to purchase a rifle from 18 to 21. Okay, no other state has done it, and this state is run by Republicans. And while I was up in Tallahassee getting this gun bill passed, which if I wrote it, I might not have been. I wouldn't have been involved. I wouldn't have put the gun bills in it so much. But in life, you have to learn to give to get. And me being a conservative, I was okay raising the age. It wasn't the greatest thing, but we raised the age to 21 because there was other things in that bill that meant a lot to me for school safety.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we put red flag laws into place in Florida after this. And this was all run by Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we worked on in Tallahassee. And do you know where March for Our Lives were and all those kids that you're talking about?
Tell me.
They were nowhere to be seen when we got this bill passed.
Why?
They were in Washington, D.C., organizing a march to ban all guns and to blame the president for the shooting. That's what was going on in Florida that the media doesn't like to focus on, but Republicans got more gun control than any Democrat done in the whole country.
Well, let me be clear.
That was done in Florida.
And Andrew, I'm glad you brought that to our attention. Let me be clear here. I am really happy to hear that was done in Florida. And I'm going to be honest with you. I was unaware of that. All I know.
Another thing
go ahead.
I want to tell you another thing that
Sure.
was accomplished that you won't know about either. So in my book, and what I focused on was looking into the facts of how my daughter could get murdered in the school and what led up to it. And what I found out was that everybody knew that the shooter was an evil kid, okay? He was evil.
Mm-hmm.
He dreamt of killing. He wanted to kill people. He trespassed at the school before he threatened to shoot the school up. He punched his mother's teeth out.
Mm-hmm.
The sheriff's department was at his house over 40 times on call.
I talk about that all the time. Yep.
And he was never arrested.
Which is ridiculous.
So why he was never arrested, it's because of these leftist policies that were in place, okay, that they wanted to end the school to prison pipeline, okay? So there has to be a fine line. So this kid, if he would have been arrested or Baker acted where he was mentally ill, if he would have went and been involuntarily committed, that would have been on his background, and he never would have been able to purchase a rifle.
Right.
So when I explained to you all these facts of what's going on, the same shooting in Dayton, Ohio, was the same type of killer. Mm-hmm. He threatened to kill kids, right? When he was in high school, he had a rape list.
He had a kill list,
and he was never arrested. So the problem I have with Democrats is they don't look at they don't have solutions. Okay, if a kid wants to threaten to shoot the school up, if we arrest them, they'll have a background and they wouldn't be able to purchase a rifle. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of these Democrats refuse to look at these policies that are in place of ending the school to prison pipeline. Mm-hmm. If we take these threats seriously, they wouldn't be able to purchase a rifle. And these mass shootings, a lot of them wouldn't happen because these people would have backgrounds. Mm-hmm. Background checks only work if people are arrested when they commit crimes. And that's what's in my book, because a lot of these schools throughout the country have policies in place that don't arrest violent kids, or they don't help the mentally ill that are emotionally disturbed. They don't put this stuff on their backgrounds, and that's the problem. And that allows them to be able to go buy a rifle and to be able to commit these mass shootings.
Andrew,
so, there's a lot of issues involved when it comes to these mass shootings.
Oh, absolutely, Andrew.
Right.
I wouldn't deny that, Andrew. Let me say this. So I think there's several really important issues in regards to these shootings, and I talk about it all the time. And you're absolutely right. These red flag laws need to be put in place. There is no question about that. But I would disagree with you on this. I don't think that the majority of Democrats have no ideas. Maybe you disagree with their ideas, and we can talk about that. I wouldn't say they don't have any ideas, but I would say mental illness is a big part of it. I agree with you. These red flag laws need to be put in place. That kid should have never been able to put his hands on a weapon. And so
he should have been in prison, in my opinion, for what he did up until that point.
Yeah,
Andrew, do you talk about Scott Peterson at all in your book? And if so, can you share those thoughts about him with us, please?
Well, yeah, sure. Peterson, it wasn't just, the country doesn't know, it really wasn't just, I was just up in Tallahassee, if you could imagine, working with the governor, keeping the sheriff from getting reinstated. Okay, but he had about 10 deputies. It was systematic failure that day that let my daughter get murdered. It wasn't just Peterson. Peterson is the school resource officer that worked at the school. he got within 9 feet of the door where the shooting was going on, and the murderer was still on the first floor, and he didn't go in the building. He just, froze and just was a coward, and he didn't go in. And while the shooter was on the first floor, my daughter was on the third floor. So if he would have went in, most likely my daughter would everyone on that third floor would have lived.
I don't doubt it.
Most of these people are cowards.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only he failed, there was about another 6 or 7 deputies that pulled up when the shots were still going off, and they didn't go in the building either. So it was a big failure that day. Yeah, and he had a monitor that worked at the school. He watched the killer come in with a rifle bag. His name was Andrew Medina.
Right.
And then he had another monitor, if you could believe it, was inside the building where my daughter got murdered.
Oh my God.
He went and hid in the second floor. He went on in the closet.
That's just embarrassing.
And I could understand him hiding because he wasn't armed.
Right.
But he had a radio and a phone with him in the closet
Ugh.
on the second floor when he knew that the shooter was on the first floor. And he didn't warn anybody. He listened over the loudspeaker while he was in the second floor that they told the students to evacuate because they thought there was a fire. So rather than he saved himself, he didn't want to speak up in the closet.
If you had a chance to speak with him face to face, what would you say to him right now?
Well, I did.
What did you say?
He's just a piece of garbage. He's a 50-year-old man, and he's a disgrace. But there's a bunch of them, not just him that failed all those kids that day. And I've been on a crusade of accountability, of holding them all accountable.
Good.
Last week it was the sheriff. They wanted to reinstate him, and we thank God that, here we go again with the Republicans. Thank God the Republicans in Florida voted not to reinstate him. If it was up to the Democrats, they would have reinstated this failed sheriff because just to give the governor a blow.
Andrew, let me ask you this. Because, I'm so glad that you and fellow Republicans were able to get together and put some things on the books. I think that is amazing, and I'm so glad you did that. But why is it that it has to take a tragedy like this where you lose your child for politicians to put these types of things on the books? I'm not blaming Republicans or Democrats now. I'm just speaking in general terms. I'm glad you did that in Florida. But for the rest of the country, we don't have certain types of laws like the ones you were able to put on the books in place. Why is it that it takes these horrible tragedies to do something? That's what frustrates me.
Well, because I don't think you got to give to get. You know what I'm saying? Like we did in Florida. Like I said, if I wrote the bill, I might not have put in the 21, raising the age to 21. But we had to get the bill passed because there was a lot of other good things in the bill.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a marriage. You know what I mean? When people could sit at a table and work certain things out that they don't agree on, it just seems like it's so divided, the country.
It is.
It's hard to work, it's hard. The left and the right just can't get a balance.
Yeah.
And you know what? A lot of the, like I say, with a lot of the Democrats that I've been dealing with, they don't look into these solutions. They're only looking into ban. They want background checks on ammunition. They want background checks only work if you arrest criminals.
Mm-hmm.
So with this restorative justice policies in place throughout the country, if we're not arresting people when they're violent, background checks don't work. So, they have to give to get, and I think that it's just so divided that it's kind of tough to get things done. But, like I said, Florida, and another thing we got done that you guys probably don't know about, the president, I met with the president, and he put a federal school safety commission together with his cabinet secretaries, and he ended, a lot of these policies of not arresting kids started with the Obama administration.
I believe that.
To end the school-to-prison pipeline. And the president ended it. No one knows this. He put this commission together, and he ended it because it creates a chaotic, unsafe environment in different school districts. So he ended it, but just because the president ended it, it doesn't help parents at a local level. And that's what I found out, and that's why I urge parents to get involved locally because, at a federal level, no one it doesn't help you. You know, you got to do it at your own school and at a local level. That's why local government is so important.
So let's talk about the president here for a second. And by the way, I'm glad that the president put that into play because I'm with you on this. But after the shooting here in Las Vegas, he talked about gun control. He talked about red flag laws. He talked about background checks. He talked about everything, really. And nothing was done. Am I putting 100% blame on the president? No. But I will say this, and this is my perspective, Andrew, and I want to get your opinion on this.
Sure.
You know, he talks tough when it comes to the Texas El Paso shooting. Again, he talked about gun control. He talked about red flag laws, the things you're talking about. He talked about background checks. And then he meets with the head of the NRA. And then after the NRA, he doesn't want to talk about any of those issues, and he's just talked about mental illness, which, by the way, I think needs to be addressed. There's no question, right? But, Andrew, in my personal opinion, and you tell me if you disagree, I do think the NRA is in some of the pockets of some of these politicians, and I do think they are influential, and I don't think they're helping the cause here. What we all want is for never to have one of these shootings happen again, and sure. I just don't think the NRA is helping, and I think they are influencing some of our politicians, including the president. What do you say to that?
Well, what we did it in the state level. We didn't need the president. You know what I mean? We did it with the senators and with the House, the state reps.
Right.
So I would say that if every state individually to look for the president to fix a certain state, you don't really need that. You know, we have it in Florida without the president doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be up to the local. What I experienced, it was everything local in the state of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I want to touch on red flags because not everyone understands the red flag laws. Like I happen to get an education on it. So I don't think the red flag, you know, there's laws in place. And I don't think the red flags, think about when I tell you this, you tell me if it makes sense. So
okay.
The red flag is it gives the police the ability to take away the weapons of someone that's a danger to themselves or to others, right?
Sure.
So if someone's so much of a danger that they're going to kill themselves
mm-hmm.
or kill other people, why stop at just taking their guns if they're that much of a
put them in
danger?
the hospital. Yeah.
Exactly. That's
I agree.
What I'm saying.
I agree. Yeah.
So they should be committed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Cruz should have been. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Cruz should have been committed. I could not agree with you more. And this is where I disagree with Democrats. We need to be tougher on these red flag laws. If somebody texts their spouse and says, I'm going to kill you tonight, not only should they be arrested, they should be put in an institution, for Christ's sake, and put a ban on them. Listen.
At least if it's a pattern of behavior like it was, clearly like it was with this student. I have a question for you. I'm going to go back to Scott Peterson here. Was he the only one that was actually armed in the school that day?
No. In the school, yes, correct. He was the only one. He could have saved the whole third floor. He went, we know by video, he went to 9 feet from the door to go in. He was driven to the door. And when he was 9 feet from the door, he heard the shots inside that killed two of the coaches, Aaron Feist and Coach Hickson. And then he retreated, and he went and hid behind a wall for another 40 minutes. And then, deputies pulled up. And then there was other deputies that were armed
mm-hmm.
that could have went in. They took a perimeter. And we know from Columbine that policy has changed. You're supposed to rush the building. So like about 7 other armed deputies hid outside their car, behind their cars. And then that was the sheriff's department. And then the police department from the city, Coral Springs, came and charged the building. But it was too late by then for everyone in the building.
Well, I hope
the sheriff's department even let the killer escape. Why they had a perimeter around the building. That's how unorganized they were.
Andrew, we only got about a minute to go here, and I'm so appreciative that you were able to take some time to join us, and I'm so sorry for your loss and the pain that you and your family have to go through. But before I let you go, can you talk to me a little bit more about your book? How can people find your book and buy your book? Because I think it's really important for people to read what you have to say.
Oh, thank you. The book I wrote to honor my daughter. She would want everyone to know the facts and the policies in place and the people who failed. So the book is called Why Meadow Died, and it's actually, I call it a manual now that every parent and grandparent should read it and see what happened and see if it's going on in their child's school, because these policies are throughout the whole country, and it just creates an unsafe environment. One thing I would want parents to know is they label these kids, like say someone's emotionally disturbed or mentally ill, they'll label these kids special needs, which there should be they should differentiate special needs from kids that are autistic or dyslexic and nonviolent. Mm-hmm. Those kids we have no problems mainstreaming.
Right.
What they do in these public schools, they'll mainstream a kid with oppositional defiant disorder, or they're just mentally disturbed and violent, and they label those kids special needs also. Mm-hmm. So between that and the lax discipline policies, it's just created this unsafe environment in the schools.
And I know,
and I lay it out for all these parents in my book.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. And I know that you talk about this in your book, and it's a must read, and I hope people can get out and get this book. Andrew, thank you so much for your time. People like you need to be heard. I'm so sorry for your loss, and I hope we can discuss this again sometime, because I think it's a very good conversation. Andrew, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate
Thanks
that.
a lot, Andrew.
There you go, Andrew Pollack, a Parkland dad. Wow, that was some really powerful stuff. Some stuff I disagree with him on, but I agree with a lot of what he said as well. We'll take a quick break, be back right after this. You're listening to The Vegas Take.